There's a kind of heartbreak no one prepares you for. Not the kind where love disappears, but the kind where love stays and the relationship doesn't. Breaking up with someone you still care about isn't about cruelty. It's about courage. Because staying out of fear hurts longer than leaving with honesty. Here's the first thing you need to understand. Caring about someone does not obligate you to stay in something that no longer works. Love and compatibility are not the same thing. You can care deeply and still know this is not your future. And pretending otherwise doesn't protect them. It slowly erodes trust. The biggest mistake people make is waiting for the perfect time. There isn't one. There is only the moment when you're ready to be clear. Clarity is kindness. Not softening the truth, not sending mixed signals that keep hope alive. Real kindness sounds steady, not dramatic. When you speak, your tone matters more than your reasons. Don't rush. Don't over-explain. Don't list their flaws. This is not a debate. It's a declaration. You're not there to convince them. You're there to be honest. Say what is true without being harsh. I care about you. This isn't working for about this carefully. I don't want to continue. That's enough. More words don't make it easier. They just make it confusing. Now listen closely. You are responsible for honesty. You are not responsible for how they process the pain. Trying to manage their emotions by staying longer or offering false hope only delays healing. Pain now is cleaner than pain later. This is where boundaries matter. Caring doesn't mean staying emotionally available after the decision is made. Boundaries aren't punishment, they're protection. For both of you, staying in constant contact, checking in as friends, or easing your guilt keeps the wound open. Real respect creates space. And here's the part no one likes to admit. You can break someone's heart and still be doing the right thing. Choosing truth over comfort does not make you cold. It makes you honest. If you stay when your heart is already leaving, you teach them to love a version of you that isn't real anymore. That's not kindness. That's avoidance. Ending things with calm, clear respect allows both people to grieve properly and move forward with dignity. You don't need to disappear emotionally to end something cleanly. You just need to be consistent. No mixed messages. No emotional backdoors. No, maybe someday, just truth delivered gently and held firmly, because the goal is not to avoid pain. The goal is to avoid regret. When you break up with care, you leave behind something important. Self-respect for them and for you. Clarity is kindness. Confusion hurts more than honesty. Most people believe that softening the truth protects feelings, but in reality, uncertainty causes deeper and longer lasting pain than clear honesty ever does. When someone doesn't know where they stand, their mind fills in the gaps with hope, fear, self-doubt, and unanswered questions. Confusion keeps people emotionally suspended, unable to move forward yet afraid to let go. That suspended state is exhausting. Clarity, even when it hurts, gives the nervous system something solid to land on. Honesty provides a clean edge. It may sting at first, but it allows the truth to be processed, accepted, and eventually released. Confusion does the opposite. It drags pain out over time. When words are vague, inconsistent, or softened to avoid discomfort, the other person is forced to interpret tone, timing, and silence. They replay conversations, analyze messages, and search for meaning where none was clearly given. That mental loop often causes more suffering than a direct answer would have. People often confuse kindness with being agreeable. They believe that delaying honesty or offering half-truths is a way to be gentle. But kindness is not the absence of discomfort. It is the presence of respect. Respect means trusting someone with the truth rather than managing their emotions through avoidance. When you are clear, you treat the other person as capable of handling reality, even if reality is painful. Confusion also damages trust. When words and actions don't align, the mind looks for patterns. Mixed signals create instability. One day there is warmth, the next day distance. One conversation suggests possibility, the next suggests hesitation. Over time, the person on the receiving end begins to question not just the relationship, but themselves. They wonder what they missed, what they did wrong, or what they need to change to regain clarity. This internal questioning erodes confidence and self-worth. Clear communication removes that burden. It allows the other person to stop guessing. Even if they don't like the answer, they can orient themselves around it. Certainty allows grief to begin and healing to follow. Confusion blocks both. It keeps people emotionally invested in outcomes that may never happen, tying their energy to uncertainty rather than growth. Clarity also protects integrity. When you are honest early and calmly, you avoid the slow erosion that happens when truth is delayed. Avoidance often feels easier in the moment, but it compounds over time. Each day of silence or mixed messaging adds weight to the eventual conversation. What could have been a difficult but respectful moment becomes a painful confrontation fueled by frustration and mistrust. There is also self-respect in clarity. Speaking honestly requires courage. It asks you to tolerate discomfort rather than escape it. When you choose clarity, you are not trying to control how someone feels. You are choosing to stand firmly in what is true. That steadiness communicates maturity and emotional responsibility. Kindness does not mean explaining everything in detail. Over-explaining can actually create more confusion. Clear honesty is often simple and grounded. It states what is true without justifying it excessively. It doesn't leave emotional doors half open. It doesn't rely on tone shifts or vague promises. It gives the other person a complete message instead of fragments. Confusion often feels gentler because it delays consequences. But delayed pain does not disappear, it multiplies. It stretches into nights of overthinking, unanswered questions, and emotional instability. Clarity condenses pain into a moment that can be processed. One path prolongs suffering, the other respects time and emotional health. Ultimately, clarity is an act of care. It says, I respect you enough to tell you the truth. It allows both people to regain their footing. Honesty may bruise the heart briefly, but confusion quietly fractures it over time. When you choose clarity, you choose clean pain over lingering damage, and that choice is one of the most sincere forms of kindness there is. Care doesn't cancel incompatibility. Love alone isn't enough. This is one of the hardest truths to accept, especially when emotions are real and effort has been genuine. Caring deeply for someone creates a powerful bond, but that bond does not automatically mean the relationship can grow in a healthy, sustainable way. Love can exist without alignment, and when it does, it often creates confusion, guilt, and prolonged pain rather than fulfillment. Incompatibility is not a failure of character. It doesn't mean either person is wrong, broken, or insufficient. It simply means two people operate differently at a foundational level. They may value different things, communicate in incompatible ways, or envision very different futures. These differences don't disappear just because there is care. In fact, care can sometimes make incompatibility harder to face because emotions encourage people to overlook or minimize issues that consistently resurface. Love alone cannot compensate for misalignment in values, timing, or emotional needs. You can care deeply and still feel drained, misunderstood, or constantly compromised. When love becomes the reason to tolerate ongoing dissatisfaction, it stops being nurturing and starts becoming a justification for staying stuck. Over time, this creates resentment, even when no one intends harm. People often stay in incompatible relationships because they believe love should be enough. They tell themselves that if they just try harder, communicate better, or sacrifice more, things will eventually align. But compatibility is not something you force into existence. It's something that reveals itself through daily interaction. When fundamental needs go unmet, effort turns into exhaustion. Caring for someone does not obligate you to accept a life that feels misaligned. Staying solely because of love can slowly erode your sense of self. You begin adjusting your expectations downward, silencing needs, and normalizing discomfort. This gradual self-abandonment often happens quietly, making it harder to recognize until the emotional cost is significant. Incompatible relationships often cycle through highs and lows. Moments of closeness reinforce hope, while recurring conflicts signal misalignment. This pattern can be emotionally addictive, keeping people attached to potential rather than reality. Love fuels the belief that the next conversation, the next compromise, or the next milestone will finally resolve the tension. But patterns exist for a reason. They are information, not obstacles to ignore.